This is the Trident 3dimage 985. Trident's second attempt at making a 3D graphics card. Considering Trident's reputation of making bad video cards, this one gives off the same feeling of, ew, I don't want it in my computer. I'm going to be doing one of my silly CPU versus 3D accelerator comparisons inside this Pentium 2 400 MHz. I was originally going to use my K6 450 MHz to try it out, because it'd be a little more of a good pair, but I didn't want to dig it out of there. So who will win, this Pentium 2 or a 3D accelerator? So we're going to run this at 640 by 480 with all the settings set to highest. I also had to crank up the brightness to make it so we can actually see it with this 3D card, because for whatever reason it renders the image rather dark. Well, right off the bat you can see it dropping objects to salvage the frame rate, which is kind of funny. Even though the image was corrupted on the S3 Verge, I don't think it dropped the objects that fast.
Where's the power?
Another thing interesting about this card is just how inaccurate the texturing is. You can see the moon is just moving beneath you. And also if you go look at one of these pillars here, it does the same thing, and also the filtering is just kind of ugh. I don't know about you, but I don't find it very fun to blow up things that I can't see. Well, that was certainly exciting. You can try turning down the settings in this game to get a better frame rate, but things start looking a little bit bad. Also, you can get a better idea of how bad the texturing is when you get up and close and personal with stuff here pretty quick. This card can make some pretty good kaleidoscope simulations. So now this is software rendering at 640 by 480, and everything looks exactly as you would expect it to be. Considering this is a Pentium 450 MHz, runs pretty good. So that's going to be 1 point for the Pentium 2 and 0 points for the 3dimage 985. So up next is Moto Racer and Direct 3D with everything all maxed out at 640 by 480.
Play solo. 3, 2, 1, go!
It actually doesn't run that bad. It's actually playable. However, it's not what I would want to get out of a 3D accelerator, personally. I think the only graphical oddity that I saw this entire time I played the game was this cave here. So now this is 640 by 480 running in software rendering. And it appears to have a little bit of a smoother frame rate than the Trident card. I was going to comment on the texture distortion on the ground there, but it appears to be a game problem and not a card problem. It was only by a little bit, but I think the Pentium 2 won here. It has a slightly smoother frame rate, also no graphical glitches at all that are supposed to be there. Up next is Half-Life in 640 by 480 in Direct 3D mode.
And welcome to the Black Mesa Transit System. This automated train is provided for the security
And all is not well.
Mesa Research
Textures are
personnel.
not looking so hot. And neither is that frame rate.
Security area.
Later along in the train ride, I think the card hit something that it didn't like, turned the entire scene white except for some objects.
And board a high security train.
I tried pausing the game and then turning it back on to see if I could get out of this little snow zone, but it just crashed the game and freaked out my sound card. The game just might have thrown something that the card didn't like at it. If I skip later into the game with software rendering, it worked alright. Now I have it at a quarter of the resolution of 640 by 480, and it runs okay, I guess, but everything still looks awful.
This all looks nominal. Ah, it's good to see you.
With 640 by 480 and software rendering, you get about a little bit more than the frame rate of a quarter of the resolution on the 3D acceleration, and nothing's bugging out. So I think the Pentium 2 definitely wins in this situation. Now we're going to try a Frogger with 3D acceleration on high settings. Right off the bat, you can see some of that texturing weirdness when you're getting up close to the objects. Everything seems to look alright. The transparencies are a little bit weird, but besides that, everything seems to be working alright. Considering that it's running at a higher resolution than when the S3 Verge was running it, I'd say this is a little bit faster than the S3 Verge in this game. Now with software rendering, you can see that the texturing is better right off the bat, and it also runs a lot smoother. Also, for shits and giggles, we're going to throw the MMX mode in there as well, since we're on a faster processor this time. For being 450 megahertz, there really isn't much of an improvement there. It kind of makes me wonder why that's even an option, why they even felt the need to keep that in the game, considering that there is no graphical improvement when switching to MMX over software mode, and it just runs a lot slower. Even the main menu doesn't work right under MMX mode. So yeah, the Pentium 2 clearly wins in this one, unless you want to sacrifice all that good frame rate for that slight transparency with the water on the 3D acceleration. Now, considering what this card's been capable of in the past 4 games, this is really unfair, but we're going to throw Unreal Tournament in here just for the heck of it. When I installed the game, it didn't even recommend to use a Voodoo 1, it wanted a Voodoo 2, so we can all kind of see where this is going to go. But this is running in software rendering at 320 by 240. Yeah, it actually runs pretty good on low settings, just software rendering. Considering how this game looks with a good 3D accelerator, it's just a testament to all the hardware that the developers had to optimize this game for. And this is what happens when you try to force the Trident to run this game. Plenty of texture oddities, and it doesn't run so well. Not as good as the software renderer. The game actually recommends that you use the software rendering if you have an older 3D accelerator, such as this one. So at this point, the game just hard-locked my entire computer, and I couldn't control it, delete, or anything. I had to physically reset the machine. So, even though that's really unfair, I'd say that the point goes to the Pentium 2, obviously, because it actually works. So yeah, that's yet another great 3D accelerator. This one is worthy of the Trident name after all the not-so-great VGA cards they put out during that whole DOS era. I'd most definitely stay away from this card when trying to play 3D games. However, if you want to use that AGP slot when you're using your Voodoo 2, this might be a good option because it does 2D pretty well. I think my Pentium 2 wants its Rage 128 Pro back. I'm gonna go reinstall that.